Hello to the chicos and the chicas, welcome back. Speedrun Reno, and today I'm going to play a counterpunching opening. I would like to show you some less principled openings and how to play them in a principled fashion. So today I am going to test out the modern defense, or the Pirc, as it may transpose indeed into the Pirc with knight f6. So we will see bishop c4, perfectly fair and valid move, knight f6. Now queen e2 and knight c3 are the two most known moves in this position. e5 gets captured, and then if they take with the pawn, I can trade queens. If they take with the knight, then I can castle, and that defends f7 sufficiently. Since it is a pawn push in the center that kicks a knight, you should always be prepared for such a move and possibility, because yeah, it's just something that you need to be ready for. Now, funnily enough, this centralization of the knight on e5 may be a little bit premature. We are going to try to undermine this knight by hitting the d4 pawn, and the most convenient way to do so would be to play pawn c5. But if our opponent chooses to castle here, then it may be a little bit tricky to play that. Although I think I still can. c5, dc, maybe queen c7, hitting both pawn and knight. That is definitely a possibility there. Yeah, I'm thinking castles. c5 is what I would really like to make work somehow. Bishop f4. So one mistake that I frequently come across, even on quite high level, is that people are obsessed with developing their bishop, the c1, the dark squared bishop, in e4 openings way too soon, and usually they find a very inappropriate square for it too. Now, bishop f4 is definitely not bad, but even more definitely it's not great either. The problem here is that it backs the knight in an awkward way. The knight wasn't really challenged. It would have made a lot more sense to put it on g5 to put some pressure down here, but castles was by far the most obvious move, because white definitely will want to castle kingside, and so why not do just that? Now, here is what I was talking about when it comes to counterpunching opening and aggressive, playing passive openings with an aggressive mindset. As you can see, I am behind in space, and so I need to play with extra vigor when it comes to trying to reclaim the lost territory. And so now c5 is my number one candidate, immediately challenging the d4 pawn in the center. And if they take, I'm going to check it down. Now, an additional motive to observe is that after c5, dc, queen a5, knight c3, I do not have to, I certainly can, but I do not have to take the pawn immediately. I can play knight e4, hitting the pinned knight, and highlighting the problem with bishop f4, I might even be able to play knight h5 there. And all of a sudden the bishop is glued to f4 because the knight is hanging, since the pawn has captured on c5. So let's go. C to the 5. Obviously c3 is also a possibility, but then after cd, cd, we've got a very pleasant IQP scenario where again the bishop on f4 is utterly misplaced, giving me a big fat tempo with knight to d5. I need a drink. d5, I didn't even look at. That move did not even cross my mind as a possibility, and the reason for that is because it seems to have an awful lot of downsides. I will elaborate on that in a moment, and no upsides whatsoever. Well, to be fair, there is one upside to it. It denies knight c6. The downside is that it made the knight on e5 loose, and it extended the diagonal of the bishop significantly. So again, because of I am very attracted to this terrible misplacement of these two pieces, I'm looking at knight h5. And I simply can't find the reason why I shouldn't play this move, because I don't see a move that would allow white to retain the bishop. That sounded like I'm speaking with English accent all of a sudden. I don't know where that came from. So, knight h5, and there is no way for white to retain the bishop and the knight at the same time. So, yeah, knight h5, I reckon queen d2. But then we are definitely going to acquire the dark squared bishop, and boy, the party will kick off right after. Or, after knight h5, they might drop the... Yeah, nah, this is it. This is it, folks. This is it. This is it. Goes to show that some semi-natural looking developing patterns like playing knight e5 and then backing it with bishop f4, a very, very common misconception on lower level chess, can be so harmful. Okay, so we got knight d3 and the game is already over because knight f4, bishop b2. See how quickly it can go? So now let's very quickly reflect on what happened here. So first of all, I was aware of the central break. It wasn't good. Then at the first given opportunity, when my opponent dropped the ball a little bit, I immediately struck at the center with the most aggressive move available on the board. No prisoners taken. And after d5 again, the most aggressive move, undermining the bishop-knight combo and exploiting this very awkward stance. Takes, and g to the g. Well, obviously, well, I don't know if they are going to resign or not, but losing an exchange and a pawn is not exactly a great way to kick off this game. Right, so here is the thinking. Let's play c3, let's trap the bishop in. You don't want to trap the bishop in, brother. You want to take that bishop. Basic instincts are absolutely not functioning for white here. Playing c3 when they could develop a knight and instead of losing a full rook, lose an exchange, they play c3. Like, this move has absolutely zero value. And I'm a bit upset about it because it kind of ruins the experience. Because after knight d2, bishop takes, queen takes, I would have needed to play a few accurate moves, because I am obviously working with a noticeable back rank fest. And so, yeah, tough, well, not tough, but some decent moves still would have been required from me to score the full point. Now, on the other hand, I'm up a full rock, and yeah, no worries. Queen d6 looks like a nice move to tickle this knight a little bit, and then bring out the knight to d7 to f6. Yep, let's do that. Expecting queen f3, but then knight d7 will introduce knight e5, hitting both of these bad boys. Actually, maybe queen d2 is a seemingly, but oh, I see a cute tactic here. Queen d2 with the idea of cutting out the bishop escape square, so that after knight d7, they can play knight a3, and then the bishop is trapped. No, it's not, because then I get to take c3, and when the queen takes, I take the knight. This, folks, is the textbook case of what most players don't do well, or in fact, in the majority of the cases, at all below 2000 level. And that is that I'm actively calculating scenarios that may occur in the game. If you take nothing away from this entire series, but just this habit of mine that I'm constantly calculating lines and ideas when it's not my turn. This is something that most people really undervalue and don't do well, if at all, in their chess games. And as you can see, sometimes I strike gold, sometimes I completely miss. Now I missed. But then again, I was already ready for this, I was ready for that, and because of I was ready for queen d2, I now immediately understand the purpose of knight d3, which is the same as queen d2, to block b2, so after knight a3, the bishop is blocked in. The problem is that c3 is now not guarded, so no worries, I can just develop the bishop, then the knight to d7, and we are all golden. We are all golden. In fact, every move would have been fine. Immediate knight d7, knight b6 is also very, very strong. It doesn't matter. The knight can't move because I take this. If they go knight a3, bishop takes knight b5, hitting both queen and bishop. I then have queen f6. Well, knight c7 is available, but no one cares. I'll play knight d7, take, come up a piece. But that might be a reason why I should have favored knight d7, because in that case the rook would have had an escape square. So knight e, bishop here, knight b5. Is there a way I can save all my material? Because I want to be greedy. Technically, after knight a3, I could insert this, which then would allow me to play bishop b2, but I really don't want to hang on to the full rook so desperately. I honestly do not. So if I get to pick off a pawn, another pawn that is, and then lose an exchange back and just be a piece up, fine. Every trade takes me a lot closer to victory, so no worries. No problemo. Queen e2. I have absolutely no idea what that does, so we develop our pieces because that's what we do in chess. Actually, I'm quite inspired by this game. I do think that I will throw in a number of these, I don't know what to call it, second wave openings, or not that popular openings, or, well, actually they are quite popular. So less aggressive, less ambitious openings, French, Pirc, Caracans, to demonstrate that you can play principal chess on the back of those too, but A, it's a lot harder, and B, yeah, as lower-rated players, I would stay away from all of those openings. But I think it is quite an awesome thing to see how we can turn around those openings as well and play very principled chess. So that will definitely still be on the agenda. So the queen is protecting c3. This is a typical case, again, when I just played out a line that I already calculated in different contexts. So we already anticipated this, and hence my very speedy queen f6 move against it. What would I do here for white? I would offer my hand in resignation and head for the pub. That's what I would do. That's actually not true because I don't drink, so the pub is not really an attraction for me. Beautiful tactic incoming. Rook c1, bishop takes d3. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite win material because after rook c3, bishop e2, it's still a rook. But I managed to trade off a pair of pieces and the queens. So that's gonna be pretty cool. Cool. I just accidentally grabbed that queen to c2. That would have been a heck of a situation. So yeah, rook c1 appears to be most natural to attack the queen and defend the bishop at the same time, especially since bishop b3 loses to c4. And bishop b5, a6, bishop takes d7, bishop takes d3 is not exactly exciting for white either. And so we earned a cool victory. Oh, I even got a... I know that you can't see this. I'll go back to the other card very quickly. 96.6. Hello! Zero mistakes, zero miss, zero blunder. Bring on the Pirc, baby. Bring on the Pirc. Okay, so once again, the key moment in the game was the fact that after knight takes castles, my opponent played bishop f4. This is unnecessary, inaccurate, and the irony is that this was played to bolster the e5 knight, but ironically, it actually made it worse because it allowed me to hit both of them at the same time with the tempo. Once again, castles would have been the appropriate measure, and I don't know if I would have played his c5. I would have considered it with the idea of takes and then either queen here or queen a5. That was one of the ways to play it. The other one is a bit more passive, and I don't really like it, is knight d7, which hits the knight and prepares for c5, but it may be necessary to play like this. Yeah, I reckon that this is what the game would have come to. But yeah, after bishop f4, c5, immediately blasting the center open. Well, I suppose c3 would have been a better move than d5. And here I would have taken, and maybe knight d5 already is a very tempting move here. Yeah, I really like this position, but d5, knight h5 was just such a marvelous example to demonstrate how to fight against the center and how to exploit a move that I already labeled to be very, very sus. Bishop g3, of course, would have lost the takes followed by bishop takes here. So best maybe would have been queen d2. No, it's definitely not best. Most logical. But then after take again, if I play queen d6, I guess, yeah, just to keep the queen protected. If the knight moves, we have got the same story, yeah? Take on b2 and the game is over. And that's precisely what happened in the game as well, where my opponent played knight d3, tuck, tuck, tuck. And yeah, well, okay, so here c3 was absolutely crazy city. Knight d2, bishop takes, queen takes would have still made me find a few better moves. It's a very cute tactic here and I can't make it work. So what I wanted to do here is to demonstrate the idea that if I play a pass, then after castles I have b5, because if bishop b5 then queen a5 hits both pieces at the same time. That is really funny. But I don't really have a useful move here because the most natural knight d7 would allow the bishop to take here. Actually, there is bishop c6 also available. But yeah, b5 is an idea. So knight here. I wonder if I would have... No, I don't like queen d6 in this position because after knight d3, knight e4 is gonna hit two things at once. Just develop. Just develop. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Not at all. Castles, knight b6. Yeah, hit the bishop, put pressure on the pawn, trade everything, happy days. Maybe queen a5 is also very powerful because it hits the knight and threatens b5, like I introduced. So yeah, there is just a mere... Knight f6 is a very handy move to play here. Cutting out knight e4, cutting out the queen's diagonal, then queen d6, bishop d7, and b5 are very handy, easy moves. So, that was it, folks. That was it. Speedrun Reno, next episode in the books. We have crossed 1400, so I'm excited to see the next batch as we are approaching the higher rating levels. Thank you very much, guys, for watching. Please don't forget to sub, to like, to super thank me if you can. A royal shout out to a superhuman gentleman whose name I cannot say because I didn't get the permission, but I received a very generous donation through my YouTube channel for my YouTube activities. You know who you are, buddy. Absolute legend. Thank you very much again. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.